Why do most real estate deals fall apart? Well, let's talk about that today. And of course, let's talk about how you can avoid that. My name is Mindy Sylvester, and I've been selling real estate in the Naples area for over 25 years. If this is your first time to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. It would really help me, and I would appreciate it. And you will be the first one to know about the latest real estate information in the Naples area. So let's talk today about why deals fall apart. If you haven't already watched my video as to why real estate deals don't come together, you might want to check that one out first. Or maybe you're watching because you're under contract now, whether you're a buyer or a seller. You need to know how to avoid the deal falling apart. This can be a very emotional process. Actually, it is an emotional process. It's one of the largest investments of your life. And it is probably, unless you're buying for an investment, it's probably a very emotional thing. This is going to be your home, or if you're a seller, this was your home and you have plans to move for whatever reason. And everyone needs the deal to stay together. So let's talk about why they fall apart and how you can avoid it. So the first reason deals fall apart are inspection issues. Now, I think after 25 years of experience, I think it's not necessarily the inspection issues, but the expectations aren't getting set for the buyer or the seller. We have 3 different contracts in Naples. Sadly, I get deals all the time from agents who don't know the contract. And that is the first challenge. I received, as one example, I received an inspection report and a request for repairs, 2 pages long. This agent had been in business for over 10 years. He'd sold over 100 homes. So I'm not picking on new agents here. He gave me this list of repairs that was, it was unlike anything I've ever seen. Our contract specifically says what a seller is required to fix and what they're not required to fix. This inspection notice what completely disregarded our contract. So I asked him, I said, hey, most of the stuff is not required by the seller. Have you read the contract? And he said, well, not line for line per se. He's like, okay, well, guess what? I've read it line for line like 100 times. And now what has happened is this buyer is going into this deal. They've already negotiated the price, right? You're under contract, price, everything's been negotiated. All of a sudden, something happens in the mind of a buyer and a seller. Once you're under contract, now I feel like people are starting to work against each other, which is never a good thing. So now this buyer has in their mind that they're going to get all these repairs fixed simply because their agent did not explain the contract to them. So if you're a buyer or a seller, you both need to know what the seller requirements are. Now, a commonly used contract is an as-is contract. I'm not going to go into that contract today because I'm not an attorney for one. But if you do want to call me, I'll give you my opinion on that contract. And obviously contracts may have an advantage for a buyer, or they may have an advantage to a seller. But I mostly use the Naples Area Board of Realtors contract, and that contract specifically outlines exactly what a seller is required to fix, and they're not. So as long as a buyer knows that going into it, and a seller knows that, you should have a pretty easy time. Now, another thing that happens is, sometimes the seller will refuse to fix items that they initially, when they sign the contract, agreed upon doing. And that can really have the buyer fly off the handle, right? Because, oh my gosh, now they feel like they overpaid for the house. And sometimes it's like, okay, let's talk about the big scheme of things, right? So they're not going to fix the GFIs. They're not going to fix the broken garage door opener. Let's look at the big picture. You love the home. You love the neighborhood. You got a fair deal. Otherwise, you wouldn't have signed the contract. Like, you thought you got a fair deal. So let's not let small issues affect how happy you're going to be when you move into the home that you obviously fell in love with, or else you wouldn't have made an offer on. So just try not to let little things that you're not even going to remember in a year from now, or especially 5 years from now, when you're sitting out in your lanai, sipping your morning coffee, looking at the lake. Like, you're not going to remember that the seller, wouldn't fix a couple of things. So just try to keep things in perspective. And I know that's hard because, again, people have a tendency to get very emotional, as I completely understand. Now, what happens a lot is that I see buyers and sellers just really work against each other. And yes, you are opposing parties. However, you do have to work together. And I think a lot of this has to do with the agent. I've seen agents like, this guy, he wants a $500 credit. Can you believe that? Okay, well, that's not going to help anything, right? So maybe the agent should listen to this and not a buyer or seller. But if the agent calls and says, my buyer's asking for a $500 credit because he's really concerned about the AC. He's had mold issues in the past. And the fact that the AC had mold on it is really of high concern to him. He has really high allergies or whatever. Explain the reason. Because you can't see someone's point of view if you're like, this guy wants $500, blah, 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 right? Okay, like, where's that going to get anybody? No, nowhere. So explaining someone's point of view is the best way to go. Now, this is not a negotiating class, right? But I'm just letting you know, buyers and sellers go against each other. And when that happens, no one wins. It's a fight that doesn't need to be. Okay. We've already agreed on the contract. You already have the expectations set, hopefully, on to what needs to be repaired. Now, are there major issues? Of course, major issues happen all the time. Structural issues, mold, radon. But again, get the facts. I'm working on a deal right now. We got a mold report at 7 o'clock on Friday. Home inspector is not available till Monday. What do you think happens in the buyer's mind for the entire weekend? Terrible, terrible things. They don't have enough facts. I know that this type of mold is common. It's probably not harmful. I'm not a home inspector. I don't claim to be a mold. I'm not a mold expert, would never in a million years claim to be. But I know one thing is that we have to get more facts before we can determine what the real situation is. So get the facts. And that's another thing I want to talk about. When you are a buyer and let's just say you have a 10-day home inspection period or a 15-day, whatever it is, don't wait until the last day to get your home inspection. And I've had that happen before. It's like, well, I want to be there and we can't be there until this date. Okay. You don't need to be there. Okay. I'm sure you'd like to be there, but if it means delaying the home inspection to the end of the inspection period, it's a terrible idea. We can call you. I can FaceTime you and the home inspector we can walk around the entire house and tell you what's wrong with it. But when you wait until the very end of your inspection period, what if something needs further evaluation? What if you need a second opinion? You have no time to do it. And the seller does not have to extend the inspection period. So now you're out of the inspection period. You don't know if the AC is working. The home inspector is not an expert in AC, right? You need an expert, but now you don't have time. Your back's up against the wall. So what are you going to do? You're either going to try to cancel, you're going to freak out, or you're going to get stuck with moving forward, not knowing what is really wrong. So get your inspection done as soon as possible. You don't need to be here. We can handle it. You're going to get a report. You can talk to the inspector. We can do a FaceTime. Don't delay the home inspection ever. Okay, I think I vented a little bit on that one. You know what? Whenever we have things happen and we have to bring attorneys in, we try not to make the same mistake twice. Not that it was our mistake, but you try not to have things happen over and over again when they're not a good idea. So listen to your agent. Like, we know what we're doing, okay? Okay, so I lost my train of thought there for a second. So I vented a little bit. Okay, so that kind of takes me into the number 2 reason that deals fall apart, and that is not understanding the contract. Now, again, I don't expect you to know the contract back and forth, but either get an attorney or, really take the time to read the contract and understand it and ask questions so that you know exactly what your obligations are. Again, so many of the realtors don't even know the contract, and that's a challenge, but make sure when you sign something, you know what you signed. Okay, that's really important. That's why I recommend I have the best attorneys in town. I will recommend them to you. You will know exactly what you're signing and you'll understand the contract, because that is one of the biggest reasons that deals fall through. People don't understand what they're signing. And it's a large purchase and there's a lot of money on the line, and you really need to know going into it. Hopefully you're working with me and then you won't have to worry about that. But if you're not working with me, working with another agent, tisk tisk, then hopefully that agent will help you understand. Okay. The third reason deals fall through is buyers get cold feet. Now, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into that. And I'm going to say cold feet is really lack of communication, because I think that all problems can be solved, at least the majority of problems can be solved with proper communication. So, as an example, cold feet really doesn't happen. Cold feet is just, there's a concern about something that they allow their minds to just kind of let you freak out about, rather than discussing the issue. I always tell my buyers and sellers, call me before you get upset. Call me before you get concerned about anything, because we're going to figure out what the problem is and then we're going to figure out a solution. Say, okay, because when you're going in to buy a home, one, it's a very emotional process. Now you've got inspection costs, you've got appraisal costs, and time, energy, and money. There's a cost to that as well. So we want to make sure you're going into it, and any questions or concerns you have, you communicate those. And almost everything can be done with communication. Oftentimes, even if it's an inspection issue, the problem can be handled with communication. I focus on the solutions, and I really do believe that communication is key. I'm old school. I want to talk to you on the phone, because I really don't think problems can be solved via email or text. And you don't like talking on the phone, then maybe I'm not the one for you, but I'm going to help you get that deal done. And I'm going to help communicate any issues or concerns you have, because I want you to be 100% happy 100% of the time. And there are a lot of things I can't control, but I can control communication. I can control a lot of things in the process, so that it doesn't have to be difficult. Like I always tell people, when you're a buyer, my goal is to get you the lowest price. When you're a seller, my goal is to get you the highest price. But secondly, I want this to be the best real estate transaction you've ever had. And I achieve that goal almost every single time, at least when it's in my control, because I'm going to fix a problem. I'm going to do whatever it takes to fix a problem. Now, some things are out of my control, but I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna keep fighting until I do. So anyway, those are the 3 reasons why deals fall apart. If you're thinking about buying, definitely call me, because I'm gonna help you through this process. I'm gonna make it smooth and easy. If you're thinking about selling, well, you definitely want me on your side. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I hope you have an awesome day.